Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Modern Investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are Dr. Milan Sambrak. Welcome to the show, Milan.
Thank you for inviting me. Delighted to be here.
Great to have you, as always. And Jim Eid from Eid Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Hello, Sasha, Milan. Thank you for
Great to have
inviting me.
you, as always.
Good morning.
Uh, Normally, we are discussing investing, modern investing, different ways of dealing with these questions. But today's program, I can't separate the investing from what's happening in the world now, because that can affect our investment goals.
Can I say something here now, Sasha?
Sorry?
May I say something at this point?
Yes, please.
You know, in 1967, that Six-Day War, where the Arab armies, the hugely outnumbered Israeli armies, were defeated in 6 days, the market tanked. Today, the market is hardly noticing the war between Hamas and Israel. Hardly noticing it. The market keeps going up. Why? Why the difference?
I think that, first of all, this market is incredibly strong because so many people were waiting for much higher interest rates, recession, and other factors. And market is remarkably strong. The earnings are very good. 85% of companies reported already exceeded the expectations.
Right.
More earnings are coming this week and the next couple of weeks. So the earnings season is doing extremely well. So I'm not saying that that prevents us going into recession. Everything is possible. Now, this war is different from 6 Days War in 1967, because at that time it was war of Israel against, I think it was 5 Arab countries. And Israel was victorious in 6 days, as you know. That's why there is a 6 Days War. However, this time is very different because the conflict or the war of Russia against Ukraine, now the Hamas, which is encouraged by Iran and Russia, is attacking. Hamas has attacked incredibly cruel and unusual attack against Israel, beheading children. There is a place, I think kibbutz in Israel, where 40 children were beheaded. This is incredible event of barbarity. So if we think what Russia did in Bucha or Irpin in Ukraine, this one even exceeds the murderous actions of Russia. And obviously because it's encouraged by Russia. So now we can see a formation of axis of evil, which is Russia, which is Iran, which is Hamas, and hopefully Hezbollah will stay away from it, but we are not sure how it will play out. The North Korea is preparing actions against South Korea, and South Korea is close to starting mobilization. So this is a world problem now, a big problem. It's probably even more problems than in 1939 when the Second World War started. Poland was very quickly defeated by Germans and Soviet Union. And England was the only one country who continued its fight against Germany. Germany helped a great deal by attacking Russia in 1941, but if it wouldn't be for that, and that would continue its attacks against England, and there would be Pearl Harbor, and America wouldn't openly enter the war, we don't know what would be the ultimate outcome of that. Because Germans were very close to prepare invasion of England.
May I comment here, Sasha?
Yes.
Yeah, you were talking about the Molotov-Ribbentrop agreement, I think. But I'm from Yugoslavia. Yugoslavs lost more people as a percentage of the population during the Second World War than any other country.
Yugoslavia is a very special example of a heroic people, heroic army who single-handedly fought
Yeah,
Hitler.
right.
He's fine, and this actually the invasion of Russia of Soviet Union was supposed to happen a month, at least a month earlier. And if they wouldn't invade Soviet Union in May instead of June, we don't know what would be the outcome of that, because they invaded only at the end of 22nd of June, and so in 3 months, okay, they overrun incredible spaces of Soviet Union, but the army was still intact, although many Russian or Soviet soldiers were killed, and so these officers and generals and so on, but their great reserves were still intact. And finally, in December of 41, Soviet Union had its first victory of the war near Moscow. So Germans were very close to take over the Moscow. And by the way, I've read quite a lot about the Second World War, and if they wouldn't um, uh, get distracted by taking over Kiev and blockade of Leningrad, and as Guderian was suggesting, concentrate only on one place, take over the Moscow. This is your goal. Now, Hitler didn't listen to him. But if he would follow the Guderian advice, again, the outcome of the war could be quite different. Or probably Soviet Union would prevail anyway because of its incredible reserves, the human reserves, the production, and so on. But it could take years and years and further casualties among the population. So,
The Allies won the Second World War by American money and Russian blood.
agree.
That's yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. So coming back to investments, with all that now in place, although market is remarkably strong, but I'm not so sure for how long it can brush off the situation in the world, especially each day now is very uncertain what can happen. It could happen clashes in Korea. It could happen that Iran will encourage Hezbollah to attack Israel. And there is also, as you know, American fleet now in the Mediterranean is ready to get involved. So some people believe that we are already in a third world war. Some people believe that it's leading to the third world war. I don't have a clear opinion, but there are now, unlike in 1939, when England was alone against Germany, today we have several blocs, the blocs that are opposing each other. This is much more dangerous situation when it's one country against another country. So this the situation where two blocs are against each other. And today, I don't know if you've heard, the Hamas leader ask all world start extermination of Jews all over the world in each country. Do you know how many Muslim demonstrations are in Europe, in United States of America, in Canada? There were several demonstrations of Muslim during the last weekend. There was also a Jewish supporters demonstration as well. They were in different places in different times. The police was in all these gatherings. But this is the world where we are now. It's a very, very dangerous place.
And Sasha, I'm sorry, but I had trouble with my audio, and I don't know. Have you mentioned what's going on with Azerbaijan and Armenia at all?
Yes, I didn't mention that. This is a little bit clearer situation than all others, simply because Azerbaijan basically took over as a territory which belongs to him, to Azerbaijan, by all international rules and regulations and so on. And there were Russian peacekeepers, so-called, and they were gone. There were no Russian peacekeepers when all that started. For some reason, Russia, it seems to me, it didn't want to go in an open conflict with Azerbaijan, which is supported by Turkey, and actually their army is one unit. There is no
That's
separate.
another example of an instability in the world.
Yes, that's another one. Yeah, absolutely, because the agreement, the peace treaty, has not been signed yet there. So any time situation can change, Russian can send forces to help Armenia, although they should have done it earlier if they wanted to do it, but they can still do it. So it's another situation which is very uncertain. And
Milan, we're not that far removed from trouble in the former Yugoslavia either. There are ethnic hatreds that go back quite some time, even there. So what we're looking at around the world are people that see each other as different, and instead of as fellow human beings occupying the same planet, they're thinking of them as other. And if they could exterminate the other, then they would prosper. And this is an incorrect way of thinking, because cooperation has always been the key to success for any people anywhere. But the conquering has been the model that we use. Conquer and take. And so what we have here, even though, the United States has been pro-Israel for a long time, we've all felt like the two-state solution was right there to be taken, right there to be had. And it seems to have evaporated. And it's no longer even possible now. If one state is saying we need to kill all of the members of another state, this is intolerable. We cannot have this. We must be able to coexist. And you saying they have no right to exist is something that cannot be tolerated. I don't believe.
Jim, I would like to tell you a very interesting thing. What happened to me many years ago, I think 30 years ago, even 40 maybe. I just came to Canada, and I played in a local Blitz tournament. It's Toronto Chess Club at the time. And I was in the one of the leaders. I think they had 7 out of 8, and then I was playing somebody else. It's like 7 double round tournament.
Wow!
5 minutes per game, and and I was supposed to play somebody, and I didn't know the name or anything. So I set at my board and started the clock. Nobody came. Started second game, same thing. Nobody came, and I asked organizer, who am I playing? Well, he's not there. He said, I'm sorry, he's a Palestinian, and he will not ever play you or shake your hand. I was really surprised because at that time, because I just came from Soviet Union, I was not aware of that animosity of Palestinians. And to me, it was a great stupid thing because we are playing chess. What the chess has to do with this politics? Well, I've learned at that time, yes, it does have a role, at least for some people.
And we see it in sports all over now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Milan, I did hear you ask the question of why isn't there a response in the markets now? Yeah. And I think that we can all go back to in the past, we didn't have the global economy that we do now. And we have a global economy now. And so unless you're interrupting the global distribution system, you're not threatening us with an inflationary, we're not afraid of the ultimate cost of the global economy. But if things continue, they have to have inflationary effects. War always does. It seems to me.
You're right, James. There's one other issue, though, here, and that is shortly after the Six-Day War, the OPEC countries introduced that oil embargo, which affected our economies negatively in a very major way. Now, today, the leading oil producer on the planet is the United States. It doesn't need Middle Eastern oil anymore. So that's one thing. The other thing is we've always wanted to predict the future. And so ever since Homo sapiens was born, looking into the future, looking at entrails of animals in various other ways of predicting. But the put-call ratio, the put-call options volume ratio on the U.S. market, as represented by an exchange-traded fund which tracks the S&P 500, and SPY is the best because it's the oldest, has the smallest ratio of.
And there is a great liquidity.
So
very
now
good deals.
the put call options volume on SPY is a pretty reliable indicator. And talking about it would take a very long time, but I urge all our viewers to study the put call ratio because it's one of the most reliable predictors of the future. We tell our members, we have some 300 members in this Monday Morning Millionaire program, to look at all predictions for amusement only.
Yes.
That's correct. Let's get amused, everybody.
The put call ratio is pretty reliable, and so I encourage everybody who is looking at this program to study the put call ratio and use it in their planning. Say, for instance, last week the put call ratio was positive, and owning a security is better in a rising market than writing covered calls on it. You're better to own the security outright than to write covered calls on it. So in my portfolio, we only had SPY, nothing else, SPY. We didn't write covered calls on it, which we frequently do. We just sat and watched the market go up. Mm-hmm. And so that put call ratio is a very as reliable an indicator of what the future holds as is available, because it precisely shows how people feel.
I have something to add, but Mark, you popped in. You usually have a question.
I just had a quick question, and all along those lines and everything. I was actually curious if people had a thought about.
Okay, my comment was, it is along with all this instability that we've been talking about. Think about the role that the United States has played in the past, encouraging NATO. Biden has done a great job of keeping that bloc coordinated, but not that long ago, we had a president that was trying to get rid of NATO and was cuddling up to Putin and cuddling up to Kim of North Korea. And if we go back to that kind of president, that kind of leadership in the United States, the instability would just grow and grow and grow until we're in a very different type of world, in my opinion.
Jim, what's interesting, there was a political program. I don't think that you participated in that one, but there was a lawyer by the name Adam Leparello.
I know who he is.
You know who it is, yeah, and he's very much for Trump and the Republicans and so on. And I asked him, Adam, do you really believe that Trump can become next president of the United States? Yeah. He said, yes, for sure. There is no doubts about that or so on. So I asked him, would you like to accept a small wager that Trump is not going to be next president of the United States? How much money would you like to put? And to my surprise, he offered $500. And I told him, with great pleasure. So tomorrow is next program, and I will offer him to pay up $250 now, so he will save $250.
Well, there is a serious threat that he could become, indicted and elected.
He has made the history in many ways, and continue to make history, because it
boggles my mind, but it's
entirely possible that Trump will go to jail, and that he will be elected as a leader of the Republicans, and he can become president and run the country from jail.
There is a scenario, but there is it's slowly gathering momentum. The Article 14 of the United States Constitution, whereas he will be disqualified even to run for president. You see, there is also possibility that he may be a leader of Republican Party, but there is a convention that would have to approve his leadership and that he will be a nominee. And he may not get it, even if he is leading in polls. He just may not get it. Because I believe that Biden, even half alive and half dead, he's still better choice for president than Trump.
Hey, Sasha, I don't know if you can
Yeah.
hear me now, but they've actually added a new candidate. Well, he's an old candidate, but he now may be running independently, that being Robert Kennedy. So Robert Kennedy has actually announced that he is going to run as an independent. He's not going to be trying to run against Biden. He's going to run as an independent candidate. So he will be in the race no matter what. So you will have a third and possibly a fourth choice.
We're going to be
know
hearing more
here on this network.
conspiracy
We've
theories.
got people involved with no labels and all along those lines. So there could be some multiple choices and all along those lines. And the question I was going to ask, even to your conversation earlier, is are we getting caught up in a lot of extremism across the board? Because I think about people like the folks that are part of the MAGA movement, and definitely there are some extremists in the Muslim community and all along those lines. So there are definitely extremists. I was actually just recently reading about Muslims in Kenya that are upset, and they're not necessarily upset about the Israel-Hamas war. They're actually upset about a decision that was made that gave the rights to the LGBTQIA community, because Kenya is a deeply religious community as well. So they are upset that there are some rules that they don't approve of and all along those lines. So they are upset at what Kenya has done in those spaces. And there was a massive protest that took place there in Kenya. Hundreds of Muslims actually rallied this past Friday in the Kenyan capital outside the Supreme Court to protest its decision last month to reaffirm the LGBTQI community rights of association, saying that the verdict condoned immortality and demanded that some justices step down. We saw something similar with some of the calls for justices to step down based on the Dobbs decision here in the United States and all along those lines. So it does seem like the world is full of folks that are taking the more extreme side of politics, whether that's on the right and the what some people might call the reactionary side, or the left and what some people may call the leftist side as well. So just wondered, is that also a problem where we are being ruled by the extremist?
Mark, what can I say? Kenya is a little bit outside of really what's happened in the world, because this is a Kenyan particular issue. I mean, it has to be resolved one way or another, and I think Kenya will do so in near future. There might be a civil war even, and whoever will win the civil war will make the rules. I don't see how else it could be resolved, really.
Like I said, I don't know if Jim sees where I was going with that, but definitely does seem like we are heading toward a more extremist kind of politics globally and everything. So, Jim, any thoughts around that?
It breaks down the ability to mediate or to have any kind of consensus about a middle path, where everybody's a little unhappy, but everybody can live with it. These types of solutions have gotten us out of a lot of messes. And that's kind of not possible now when people are so entrenched and so extreme in their entrenchments that there's no brokering any common ground. There's no finding it. Because if a leader stands up and says, kill all of these people, they have no right to exist, how do you compromise with that? Well, let's let half of them exist? No, you can't. There's no compromise.
Jim, if you remember, after about the first few weeks of Russian war against Ukraine, about a month, we're talking about mid-March of 22, there were attempts to find a peaceful solution to this war.
Yes.
And it could succeed. However, that was the time that were discoveries of atrocities committed by Russian soldiers in Bucha, Irpin, and several other places.
Yes.
Once that was discovered, all peaceful negotiations were stopped. It's impossible to negotiate with the army,
with terrorists,
with some brutality. And now Hamas exceeded any standards of brutality what Russia introduced to Ukraine. Hamas beat it easily by beheading 40 children, by putting them in caves and bringing them to the streets of Gaza. And all Palestinians were happy and shouting, let's kill them all, great, bravo.
How true is it?
How can you
But
negotiate?
Sasha, how true is that? Because I've actually heard reports from even folks in Hamas and others that that was not necessarily the reaction of all Palestinians and all things along those lines. I think it is unfair to make a stereotype that everybody had that belief, just like it's unfair to say that every Muslim is going to listen to that extremist
That's
Muslim
very
leader
true,
that
Mark.
said
That's
that
a
they
good
wanted
point
to
to make.
kill those folks and to kill the Jewish population. I think that that is an extremist view. I don't think that that is the view of most of the Muslim population, which, by the way, is a very divided population. There are Sunnis, there are Shiites, there are even American Muslims, and all along those lines. So there are various factions even within the Muslim
there are,
community.
of
So
course.
to make this whole conversation that it is all Muslims are saying that is not a fair statement.
You know, in our history, we have Christians killing other Christians
Yes.
because they're the wrong kind of Christian. And so, you know, the Saudis today, they're Wahhabis, and they don't believe that the other Muslims are true Muslims. Now, interestingly,
It sounds laughable, but it's true. You're describing our history.
Nelson Mandela said that love is natural. The way a mother feels about her baby, that kind of love is natural. But hate has to be taught. Hate has to be taught. Now, how right was Nelson Mandela in that respect?
Yeah, it's difficult to argue.
He was a great, great man, and he said a lot of profound things, and that's one of them.
He just
my-
said a lot of profound
The
things, and
thing
that's not
is,
even.
though, that if you are living in a cave and you listen a little bit of this, a little bit of that, these people say so, maybe they're right, maybe these people say so, and maybe they're right. My information is based primarily on some internet resources, and what CNN shows right from the ground. They are showing pictures. So whatever their analysis, you can dismiss it. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But when you see pictures is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So you see these pictures, Mark. It's very difficult.
Did you hear what happened to Elon Musk? Elon Musk is actually being called out for those pictures because there are pictures that have been doctored. There are pictures from old footage. There are pictures that are actually out there, including some pictures that are on media sources. And actually, the EU called Elon Musk out because they are saying that these are doctored pictures and that these are old footage. And all
And you
along
remember
these lines.
Trump saying that all these people were cheering after 9/11.
Right.
It was a lie. So, but many, many people believed it. So these are things, this is propaganda, and it gets cranked up in wartime. And, what you can believe nowadays, even pictures have to be looked at with a sense of incredulity. And you have to be able to say, is this consistent? Is this picture lining up with other pictures? Is this verified from multiple sources? And all of these types of things have to be taken into consideration when, it's the world is so changed because everyone has one of these now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell any story you want.
Jim, let me ask you this. So I'm watching CNN, and there is an interview right in real time, right from the ground, by Israeli general with one of the leading anchors of CNN, which could be Anderson Cooper or
right.
Yeah. So you must then think, that's not so. Okay, so this Israeli general, it's a clown which is saying exactly words which were prepared for him.
You're misunderstanding me, Sasha. You have to use you don't live in a world where everything is credible, but you use your discretion to decide, is this source credible? And is this one just maybe, a little bit questionable? And yeah, I would say if Anderson Cooper is interviewing an Israeli general with stars and stripes and whatever on his uniform, I would say that they're telling you something that Israel believes. If you have Bibi on with CNN and he's talking to them, then I think that's something that the Israeli government believes. You can go by those types of things.
What
a
if
lot of the
Biden
stuff is manufactured.
Jim, what if Biden is making a speech and he says that Israel has rights? I would say even further, it's not even rights, it's obligation
Duty.
protects its citizen.
Absolutely.
So what you must now analyze, is it Biden really? Maybe it's somebody who looks like Biden. Oh, maybe it is Biden. But then what he says, maybe it is so.
Yeah, but don't bring it to an absurd point, right? Because what we're talking about now, you can't be demeaned by making it sound like absurd. No, we know what Biden looks like, and we know that this is a credible source. And if Biden says that, then we know that that's what the administration believes. Yes, but we have lots of people, like in the example of Trump, being president, saying something that was an outright lie. That didn't happen. And are we to believe that? Yes, he said it. But can we believe it? No. He's not a credible source. So you have to use your intelligence, your experience, to guide you in whether you believe or what you're hearing or not.
Well, Jim, it was proven that Trump was lying on average 19 times a day. Okay?
And we might elect him again.
Sometimes he lied much more than that, but 19 is an average. So whatever he's
No, he definitely had a horrible average, and like y'all said, we might elect him again and everything. I've seen some interesting footage where people are taking the extreme views, even in terms of like protests and all along those lines. One of the videos that I recently saw was kind of the opposite extreme that you were talking about with the Muslims. It was actually a pro-Palestinian rally. I want to say it was maybe in Texas or one of the states west of where I am and everything. And a young woman came up and basically, while they were giving their viewpoint, took over the microphone and basically declared her hatred of the Muslim population and the fact that all Muslims need to be, that we were under fear of a Muslim takeover and all along those lines.
Mark,
and that was
you brought this point up earlier, and I think it's a great point. We have such extremism. And what the news often focuses on is the extremists. And so what we hear and what is really out there, the feelings of most people are not about genocide. And I talked about the Armenians earlier in the show. They have a tragic, sorry history of genocide. People attempting to wipe them out. The Jews, of course, they've been subject to this for millennia. And so this is the type of thing where you have to stand up as a country, as a people, as human beings and say, no more. We cannot do this. We cannot just kill and get people to cease to exist.
I mean, and it's not just there.
Armenians, unfortunately, frankly, when I was young, I lived for 8 months in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a little bit this territory, and there are a lot of famous Armenian chess players that
Yes.
some of them personally. See, the tragedy of Armenians were that, how to say it, they bet on the wrong horse.
Yes.
At the beginning, they were victorious, and they evicted a lot of Azerbaijanis, 200,000. They were homeless, and Armenians at that time, they were stronger than Azerbaijan was.
Yes, I don't mean to take sides in this, or any.
No, I'm trying to analyze. I'm not taking sides at
Yeah.
all. I'm trying to analyze. So in time, Armenia was basically on one horse, Russia. Russia is there, Russia will protect, Russia will do this and that and that and that. Azerbaijan bet on different horse. They bet on Turkey. So they modernized their army. They eventually made their two armies, Turkey and Azerbaijan, as one single unit. So slowly, Azerbaijan started to take over, not only from a financial point of view, economy, army, and the international right. The Karabakh was part of Azerbaijan. If you look at the map, obviously it's all Azerbaijan, and in the middle of Azerbaijan there is enclave, which Armenians lived there. Indeed, they lived there for a long time. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah, possession's 9/10 of the law.
But then Armenians had a long time, because the atrocities against Azerbaijanis started in more than 30 years ago.
Well, what's your analysis of the Kurds? I mean, Turkey has been very strong against trying to eliminate Kurds, and of course the Kurds were our allies, and then we turned our backs on them, and so.
Hey, Jim, we can even go past that, because one of the things I was going to ask you is about As you earlier brought up the show, and like I said, I know it's the investment show, but you brought up the notion of whether we are in a third world war. And a lot of time, world wars, we're dealing with nationalism and the pride of different nations, and all along those lines. And there was the different axis of evil and the different kinds of conversations that were going on in that conversation, just like there are similar conversations now. But nationalism, I would argue, has been on a rise, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
Wasn't nationalism part of the long conflict that was going on between Ethiopia and Eritrea, between UK and
Very
Ireland, and even between Brexit? Because I remember the Brexit movement, and that was very much around nationalism as well. So is it
part of the
that part of the
Italian
problem is that we are seeing a rise in nationalism?
Yeah, nationalism is on the rise everywhere.
Now,
Well-
talking about the Kurds and Turkey, the Turks have murdered and killed a very large number of Armenians somewhere near the end of the 19th century, and they still have not apologized and will not apologize for it, the way Germany apologized for the Second World War and its role in the Second World War.
Because Germany was defeated and almost annihilated. So the Germans had no choice, even if they wanted to support nationalism, Hitler and so on, they had no choice.
At the time, but now they're still, as a country, they're still trying to come to terms with their past, and they're being much more open about their past.
Absolutely. When Eisenhower took over and after defeat of Germany, the first thing he was shown concentration camps where Jews and other nationalities were tortured and killed. And after he saw that, he knew what is America has to do. There was a Nuremberg process. Turkey was never soundly defeated, so there would be international tribunal that recognize the atrocities against Armenians and Kurds or anything. That never happened. Now the Kurds situation reminds me a lot situation with Palestinians. Unfortunately, it seems to me that both nations, they're quite primitive in their social development, and they feel their identity. That's for sure, but yet they are not on the level of development that would allow them to create a state. Remember when Israel was allowed by
the UN,
United Nations and all countries to exist, there was actually decision to have two independent states. One is Israel, another one is Palestinian state. So Israel started to build their state. Palestinians, they wanted to fight Israel and to get them out to sea and to have all the land. They would not consider to build their own country.
Sasha, did they build that state alone, or did they build it with Western aid? Because, like I said, a lot of times people will definitely say that because of what happened in World War II, that they had a lot of Western aid and continue to have a lot of Western aid in building their country that the other nations did not have and everything. And we can't say that there are not some successfully developed Muslim countries. I mean, definitely Qatar. I know people that have visited Qatar, and it seems to be doing quite well as an economic power.
Qatar ever fought Israel, Mark? Has Qatar ever fought Israel? That's why
I'd have to look up the history and everything, but I think that parts of Qatar or parts of the people that were involved in Qatar were probably involved in some of the early wars and everything. Definitely Saudi Arabia has fought. Definitely Saudi Arabia has fought Israel, and Saudi Arabia.
There are a lot of sympathizers to Palestinians in United States, but United States never fought Israel.
You know, I heard Bibi give a talk one, and I'm not a big fan of his, but especially what he's trying to do with the Justice Department and it sounds very autocratic to me. But he said something that I think is very wise. He says, "Why would I put 99% of my energy trying to make peace with 1% of the Arab world when I could make peace with 99% of the Arab world?"
Yeah, now a lot of people criticize his strategy to get involved and make peaceful agreements with Saudi Arabia, for example, or so on. Yes, a lot of people criticizing and
including criticism in his own government.
I don't have a proof that that strategy is wrong or it's not going to work. Not at all, even in today's situation. However, to make a peace with Palestinians, okay, before Saturday's atrocities, there were, I never heard about a war against Palestinian state or Hamas or Hezbollah. There were
There's been conversations around ethnic cleansing, and so there's been definitely conversations around the way that the Palestinians are treated in that country and how there
One of
have
my
been
least
some
favorite
abuses
phrases.
by Israel and a number of
In
others. So
fact-
there have been those conversations.
In fact, several years ago, Israel completely left Gaza. They say, okay, here is in Israel, here is the wall, here is the Gaza. Do whatever you want. You want to build your state, build your state. You don't want to build your state, don't build your state.
Have you looked at Amnesty, Sasha? Have you looked at Amnesty International? Amnesty International, a organization of human rights, actually pointed out that Israel did not abandon Gaza and that they have actually done some things that were atrocious as well. And that is not that is an organization that prides itself on being neutral.
Question for all three of you. How long have Palestinians existed in the part of the world where they are today? How long have they been there?
Go back in time as far as you want.
No,
Exactly. Yeah. So they really probably have more right to be there than anybody else.
Well, I mean, you could go back to the states of before Israel. Judah. Judah was
really,
at the same time.
where Israel been 3,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago, 5,500 years ago,
Oh, right. Yeah.
where Israel was.
I mean, there's a whole discussion as to how much of the Bible is actually factually based and everything along those lines. I was going to come back to an investment question since it is modern investment, but still sits in the world situation and all along those lines. Because one of the things that people have talked about is this notion, even if we want to go to Venezuela, if we want to go to the Arab nations, if we want to even go to Ukraine and a number of other places, is as a thing in terms of financial literacy and in terms of financial knowledge, do sanctions work? Because I know that a few days ago, actually, AOC was slamming the sanctions against Venezuela and everything, and she was definitely saying that this was not a good thing. I think she was even having some conversations around sanctions toward Israel because of some of those things that are felt to be not done fairly in this whole conflict. But do sanctions work, and should countries be even thinking about sanctions, since we are an investment show and all along those lines? So any thoughts around this notion of sanctions and whether sanctions are effective?
Do sanctions work? Have they stopped Russia in Ukraine? Have they been effective? I don't know. I think sanctions often hurt the people, and the government doesn't care. And it seems to me, unless there's an uprising of the people, which is not going to happen in Russia, we have to do it, but it's not effective particularly.
Jim, I'll give you one example. I'm not in a camp to say that yes, they're working or no, they're not working. Just one example. Russian civil fleet, their main airline, Aeroflot, okay, they are flying a fleet of Airbuses and Boeings. Since embargo, they cannot get spare parts. Planes. So what's happening is they're taking, for example, two planes.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
One is flying, another one is being taken apart.
Yeah.
Okay, so it will go on for another year or so.
Yeah.
But then there will be more spare parts and the plane left to fly. Okay,
Right.
That's one example. So what they're gonna do? We'll see. We'll
They'll
see.
have China
Some
for
weeks
part.
they
No,
get-
that makes a valid point. Hey,
Hey,
Sasha, just really quickly, one of the other concerns that people have had about this supposed World War III that we might be heading to, and all along these lines, is the notion of its impact on everyday citizens. Because definitely, I've heard a lot of people that are wondering, because as I think Jim just actually Milan mentioned, the U.S. is the leading producer of gas. But even as that being the case, OPEC and other things do influence our gas prices. And this conflict, as well as the Ukrainian conflict, we are seeing a spike up in the gas and all along those lines. As I've said several times on this show, and other shows, I am a non-driver. But what is our thoughts about this notion of gas prices going up? I do know that historically they go up around the holidays.
Mark, it was one day when there was a spike in this the oil prices, then it went back down.
Yeah.
And the war is still on, but but the prices are not going higher. Okay, there could be another reason, that there could be a recession, and in a recession, all prices will go down. So that's also consideration. However, one thing to me very clear that will go higher, it's gold. Gold is a different situation because there will be a proliferation. Although a US dollar is very strong, and even so, the gold prices are climbing in the last few days. And I've added Newmont mining to my portfolio,
Right.
believing that this is the largest gold producer in the world. It's well-run company, pays dividend over 4%. So
Uh-huh.
I decided that, and you can sell covered calls if you wish. So I already twice sold covered calls, bought them back at lower prices, and did it once again. So I think Newmont is quite sound position.
In the long
Mark-
run, the benefit of gold is that it has retained its purchasing power,
Purchasing power.
thousands of
Yes, it did.
of gold today will buy the same amount of wheat, let's say, as it did 4,000 years ago. But it does fluctuate as much as 30% or more. So that while in the long run, its stability is something that we investors can benefit from. In the short run, a lot of people have lost a lot of money trying to play the fluctuations in
That's
gold.
for sure.
Yeah,
That's also true.
but the Newmont is, you're not just buying gold. I wouldn't
Yeah.
buy gold itself, but I would like gold producer.
Right.
It's an extremely well-run company. It pays
And if
dividends.
it's a well-run company, yes, then
Yeah.
it pays a dividend. Yes.
And dividends, yes, there is dividends. Options, yes, there are options. So overall, in my situation, I thought that it's much less riskier.
And knowing you as I do, Sasha, I bet there's a good volume on
On
trade.
Newmont,
The
yes,
volume, yes, is good. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a typical.
it's very
Not
liquid stock and huge volume every day, and the options are quite liquid too.
Yeah.
So it's quite easy to get in and out.
Well, one thing we need to keep in mind about inflation and all of these things, prices going up and down, is that we had a global pandemic, and it
Mhm.
caused a breakdown in the global distribution system, which caused shipping problems, and products couldn't get where they wanted to be bought, and so prices went up. And so we had this period of inflation, and the Fed has been reacting to it entirely incorrectly, as far as I'm concerned. It's been treating it as if the economy is overheated, which it wasn't. And so now when the distribution system is being repaired, we see some prices going back down. However, what companies have found is that, hey, look, these customers are willing to pay this price for this goods. So they're keeping them artificially higher than they were because people have been trained to buy them at that price.
Jim, it's classical capitalism. If you have to work
Absolutely.
on behalf of your shareholders, so
We're
if
yes.
customers can pay the whatever price you offer, that's great.
Charge it then. Of course, you're the crazy to lower it.
Hey, Milan, you're involved in the stock market. You follow the stock market. And I did see a couple of stock market stories as well, because apparently U.S. stocks are looking higher as yields are mostly continuing to ease in the bond market. So I was wondering, as one that follows the stock markets and definitely does your investing around the stock market, is this something that you are excited about? And then I was going to ask something about the luxury shopper market as well, because apparently the world's second richest man may be seeing a end of his winning streak.
I follow the put-call ratio, and I read that. And so owning the entire U.S. stock market has worked very well for over 100 years. Picking individual stocks has worked less than half the time, or at least half the time. You buy a stock, you're buying somebody who's selling it. Both of you can't be right. Occasionally, it's possible for both to be right, so let's not go into that. That's
no comments from me on that.
No comments from me.
I leave it to you.
No, but in that same space and sticking on the investment, apparently Bernard Arnault, who is the world's second richest man, I guess he's right behind. Well, actually, he surpassed Elon Musk, and apparently he was very much in the luxury industry space. And that's a whole lot of money. I don't know what you're going to do with 200 million and all in that space, but apparently maybe the luxury industry is not doing as well as it used to do, because they're saying that he is actually having a losing streak. So is that something that folks need to get out of? Is the luxury industry market, because he is the LVMH boss and all of
that is the trend, and you're finding that fashion conscious women especially are finding that lower priced things are now making them look cooler.
They're
And-
buying Lululemon products now.
And they are, the people that are in the know are nodding and winking at them for their smart purchases rather than the highest end that you could afford.
And by the way, another investment what I'm considering now is Netflix. It had a rundown quite considerably, but they have earnings on 18th of October. So they
Always
went
yeah.
down so much that I can't figure out if they will go even lower than that. Maybe a couple of dollars here and there. So anyway, I'm watching that stock, and we'll see.
That looks like a good stock to invest. I've actually got some personal interest in Netflix because I know some filmmakers that are involved in that space.
Yeah.
Don't have any financial stakes in it. Maybe I'll change that, and all along those lines. But my other quick question for you and everything, and I have good news for you, Sasha. Some very good news, other than the fact that this show is doing well on Pod TV and everything, because it's definitely been trending upwards and all along those lines. But I know, because you actually, all three of you have mentioned him at one point or another, that there is some good news for those that are not fans of Mr. Trump, former President Trump. Apparently, he's fallen out of the Forbes list. So I don't know if y'all had any thoughts about this, because apparently he is no longer among the top 100s or the top 200 in Forbes, and he has fallen out of that ranking. So I did see that on yesterday as well, that and they're saying that his ego is definitely suffering from that, because he likes being,
He's furious of that, but there is a great chance that his $250 million real estate empire will be taken apart and liquidated. So once that done, remember, by the way, in the year 2000, Trump was in minus $200 million. So that's not the first thing. So this is a funny thing.
Well, he had Daddy to bail him out over time.
Yeah,
and time
Daddy
again.
could bail him out.
Daddy's money were gone already at that time.
Okay.
Well, he has some good company.
Done.
He has some good company who he fell out with, because like I said, it was the 2023 Forbes 400 list of richest Americans. And in addition to him falling out, Donald Trump fell out, Sam Bankman-Fried fell out, and apparently the Snapchat founders. And I know a lot of young people are very much into Snapchat, but apparently they're no longer trending as well, because apparently they fell out of the 400 as well.
So you were talking earlier, Sasha, about Trump lying.
Yes.
Is there any difference between Trump lying and the manufactured news that you get in all communist countries? You know, I come from the former Yugoslavia, and they constantly used to tell us that another 5-year plan completed in 4 years, and another 5-year plan completed in 4 years. They keep saying that. In the meanwhile, you still have to line up over there to buy eggs, and another place to buy butter, and another place to buy bread. The
thing is, Fox News became top.
Classical Soviet Union model.
Exactly. And we had that with Fox News. They were trumpeting whatever Trump was saying. They were just parroting it. And they were, one anchor followed the other anchor saying the same thing all day long. So it didn't matter which show you watched, you heard the same thing.
Was the difference, though,
the whole population was hearing the same lies.
Jim, but there is a great difference that the Soviet propaganda, and probably some in Yugoslavia, it was an absolute point of view with no alternatives.
Yeah.
Here, you can watch Fox News, you can watch CNN,
that's a good
MSNBC. It's a great difference.
That's a great point.
Absolutely.
Hey, there's another industry that is taking off, and apparently they're doing quite well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, Sasha. They actually had a term for it. Apparently, it's called revenge travel. But they're saying that 83% of Americans will travel by the end of 2023. So apparently, the travel industry is taking off, and they're saying that a lot of folks are going to be jumping on planes, trains, automobiles, and whatever else they can get to go on this traveling thing, because they're saying that travel is not going to slow down, and a lot of people are going to be heading out to travel during the fall, and I guess heading into the winter months. So I guess a lot of folks are going to be looking at tourism.
Mark, I would add to all this, the trains, automobiles, and others, I would add also bicycles, because with the present gasoline prices, a lot of people will travel by bicycles. It's very healthy mode of transportation.
Europe does it. Yeah.
So here, bicycle is the key. Milan, you are a big fan of bicycles.
I ride a bicycle summer and winter. I have a winter bike, which has a very large tube and studs in the tires, so I look for ice. And there's a place in Finland, the community in Finland, which is about the same kind of weather that we have in Canada, and they ride bikes the year round. When you go to see a parking lot, it's jammed full of bicycles, not automobiles.
Well, in the winters they're skiing a lot as well.
That's actually one of the lists and everything, because they give the reasons that people are traveling, and among them is celebrating holidays. Of course, it's holiday season, so you'll be going out with your family, city or urban getaways, Halloween destinations. So you're going to go to Sleepy Hollow and everything. Apparently, they're heading toward you, Jim, because they're going for cultural or international vacations, attending a sporting event, fall foliage, which I know a lot of people come to North Carolina for that because they want to see the change of the leaves, outdoor and wildlife trips. And the one that's right underneath outdoor and wildlife trips is ski or winter sports trips. So they're doing that, and they're also going to winter wonderland destinations like Lake Placid and warm water destinations. So I guess they got a couple of reasons to come to you, Jim, because you're over there in the warm weather area.
Well, the wonderful thing about where I live is you can drive anywhere in a short amount of time. You can get to mountains and ski. You can get to the ocean, and you know there's whatever you want you can find. The Muir Woods are just north of me. It's a beautiful redwood forest. I mean, this is the kind of option.
The only problem is with the ocean over there, you cannot swim.
It's cold.
It's cold, yeah.
Yes.
I would prefer to go to Aruba instead, when there is a guaranteed weather, very, very warm ocean. And
I'm with you on that. I agree. I was talking sailing and fishing and do all of that, but yeah,
so friends of mine just came back from Bermuda. I'm very jealous of them because they got to go to a nice trip to a warm weather area and all along those lines. So I was definitely jealous of that trip to Bermuda.
Oh, okay, Bermuda is not, but Bermuda it depends on time of the year. Sometimes it could be quite cold.
The Bermuda chess scene in Bermuda was wonderful at one point.
Yeah. Same, Bahamas is better, but even Bahamas sometimes could be cold. I remember once I was there in October, and it was fairly cold. There were some, the hurricane one day when I was there. So anyway, so you go to casino and you spend all day in the casino.
But I believe everywhere has got some good points about it, and that we did have to learn to live together. And if we trade with each other, then all of us profit. We all get better. The more you have what I want, and I have what you want, and we trade.
Tell that to Hamas people. Tell that to them.
If I had the forum to tell them, I would. Unfortunately, we have yet to. Although we are a global economy, we're not yet a global community, and we have to start thinking like that.
And I think we are going to witness the end of global economy. Unfortunately, the globalism is coming to its end.
This is sad, if you're right, and you have every reason to say that. Yeah, and I can't argue with it, except to say I hope that you're wrong.
Yeah, I hope myself that I could be wrong, but as long as you have this evil countries like Russia, Iran, North Korea, China doesn't want to be in that camp. They could be considered to be part of that camp, but they are maybe too smart. Maybe
I think so. I hope so.
They could support Russia in some ways, but they're not openly declaring support for Hamas and Russia. So they're just, in my opinion, they're just too smart for it, which is a good thing for now, but we'll see.
But since the Second World War, we've had the longest period of peace in Europe that has ever existed. European countries were constantly at war with each other. All of them. France, Germany against, all the time at war. Since the Second World War, in Europe, we've had the longest period of peace ever.
Because of the European Union. Do you remember how many wars were fought between France and Germany?
Yeah.
They were almost always at war.
Yeah.
And with the European Union, there were no more wars.
Yes.
Well, possibly also the existence of atomic weapons and mutually assured destruction.
Absolutely.
That's really good too.
Yeah.
Sasha and Milan, I know we're winding down, but you talk about
Yeah.
that, and I just recently saw in the news that there is a country that prides itself on its neutrality, and they are dealing with a very important issue, and all along those lines, because apparently in Sweden there is a gang problem. We hear about the gang problem everywhere else, but apparently there's a major gang problem that exists in Sweden that they are dealing with as well, and everything. So even those countries that we pride for being peaceful countries, they are having their own issues as well, because there's a rise in gang violence in that area.
Well, Sweden is on its way to join NATO, so it's no longer a
Yes.
neutral country. Now, the real neutral country is Switzerland,
Yeah.
where people are armed. Every person in Switzerland has quite sophisticated weapons
At
to
home.
defend themselves.
Yeah.
Mobilization in Switzerland is instant, but it's pretty well the same as in Israel, because in Israel, everyone went through the training. So now how easy they could mobilize 300,000 strong army. And there were reservists flying to Israel from Latin America, from US, from Canada, from all countries. They're not trying to avoid their duties. No, they were coming there. People couldn't accept so many reservists are coming now to defend Israel. This is quite remarkable. And
Yes.
even religious Jews who never served in the army and never fought, they are lining up to join Israeli army, and their rabbis tell them, go fight. The prayers are not enough at this time.
Yes.
Go and fight. So they're going through training, and they're joining army as well. Anybody can defeat Israel? No one.
No,
It's impossible. Now, the price for people who throughout the last 75 years were fighting Israel on and on, losing every single war, but still keep fighting. Now, with atrocities committed by Hamas, there will be, remember Dostoevsky, crime and punishment.
Yes, yes.
There was a crime. Now its punishment is coming. Okay, anyway, thank you so much for today's program. Hopefully next Wednesday we'll have better news. Anybody knows what's happened with the election of the speaker?
Nothing so far. There's two
Nothing
people.
so far. They're still trying to determine who that speaker will be. There are a couple of the candidates that are running, and we'll find out who they elect. I'd heard that at one point they were even talking about bringing McCarthy back during
Yes.
this whole situation because of what was
And
going
Article
on.
14 might play a role in that too. Jim Jordan is one of the people trying to become speaker, and he was all over that, trying to overthrow the duly elected president. So that's a bad guy. And if he gets elected Speaker of the House, we're in for it.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like you said, we're going to get out of here. We do have another show coming up at
Oh.
3:00, and that'll actually be dealing with another industry that has been in the news and is even an investment for some people. Not saying everybody, because not everybody is a fan of cannabis, but we do have Weeds Wednesday with definitely Jeff Eichen that will be our regular show on Wednesday. And there are some people that are interested in that particular business and all along those lines. So I know he's more about getting the people out of prison because of that particular activity
Absolutely.
and everything, but he has also
Absolutely.
some sources around business in that space as well, because a lot of people are getting into cannabis both in Canada and in the United States. So we are seeing a rise in that industry, whether we like
Mark,
it or not.
I'm driving on the streets of Toronto, and there is almost on every corner there is a cannabis
My experience
store.
exactly.
And I never seen even one single person inside or outside or anywhere.
Collingwood, where I live, has a population of 20,000 people. There are 7 cannabis outlets.
Are they busy?
Well, I mean, isn't that the same thing? And I'm going to go get myself in trouble as we walk out the door and everything, but isn't that the same thing with most adult industry places? You can see them all over the country. You can see them all over the place, but most
Never see
people are smart
someone
enough
going
not
in.
to be seen going into the building and everything. So a lot of people are keeping those places busy, but they're also smart enough not to be seen when
Yeah.
going into those businesses.
There's
Am I
a
not
back
right,
door
Sam?
to these places.
Fair enough, Mark. Thank you
Perfect.
for joining us. And thank you, everybody,
Thank
so
you,
much
Sasha.
for this show. Have a great
Milan,
week.
Mark, great to see you both.
Yeah. And tomorrow at noon, we will have recording of a chess show.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.